Morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Delaney. I'm the North American Product Manager at Neolife. And today I am with John Miller, who's the Director of our Scientific Advisory Board. Hi, John.
Hello, Jennifer. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to be here with you and be here with all the folks to celebrate Heart Health Month.
Yes, heart health. Before we start our call, I just want to talk a little bit about your background, John. We have a lot of new Neolife members to our family. So again, you are the directory of our Scientific Advisory Board, otherwise known as the SAB. And you have over 40 years of experience. You started as an electrical engineer and worked at NASA, which I always find extremely impressive.
That was fun. I was a youngster, but it's
And then, lucky for us, you switched your career path and went into product development and manufacturing. And since then, you've been involved in development of over 500 products in over 50 countries. Is that right?
Yeah, hang on just a second, okay, Jennifer? You had to wake up, didn't you?
Aww.
She wanted to be in here with me.
And who is this?
She said she was going to be a good girl,
Aww.
didn't she?
Well, here I have mine right here at my feet.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah. How
So I
cute.
don't know why you're fading out there, Grace, but you're not close enough to the camera. Let me put her out here.
Okay.
Okay, you want to start over?
I actually think we should keep that.
Yeah, well, that makes it very human, no? You know, people go, oh, but they have puppies.
I mean, we all love animals at Neolife. In fact,
Yeah.
kind of a side note, even our Nutrients product is animal cruelty free.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So anyway, I just wanted to touch on your background there because it is just so impressive and extensive.
Okay.
For those of our family who's new to the Neolife company. So today we're going to talk about heart health, and you're going to touch on a few of our products relevant to heart health.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. We ready?
You're ready. Go ahead.
Well, I'm ready anyway. It's great to be here, everyone, and have an opportunity to talk about a very important subject to all of us, and that's our heart. You know, I think a lot of us maybe take it for granted. We don't understand we understand it's complicated and important, but we don't understand how complicated and how important and how much work it has to do over the period of your lifetime. If you think about it, it runs along at 60 or 70 beats a minute for 60 minutes an hour, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And if you're lucky, 100 and some years, which adds up to hundreds of millions of heartbeats. So it's an amazing device. When you look at the structure, let me just share a little screen here. I like this little screen that I've got up right there. There's a picture of a heart, right? And you can see this is just sort of an anatomical picture. It talks about all the valves and all of the structure. The arteries are in red and the veins are in blue. But the thing you have to understand is that the heart has to do these many roles. It doesn't just beat. It pumps blood to and from your lungs to pick up oxygen and get rid of carbon dioxide. It pumps all your blood through your liver and kidneys to filter out all the toxins, hopefully all of the toxins, and send nutrients and oxygen to all of the cells in your body, from the tip of your toes to the top of your head. And in addition to all that, it has to circulate blood for itself, because like every other thing in your body, it requires blood. So it's a very interesting device when you look at it, and amazing the way it works. So what I want to do now is just talk about a few things that maybe you know, maybe you don't, but we're going to talk about them anyway. It's an amazing thing, your heart, but what can go wrong? A lot of things can go wrong. We hear about coronary artery disease, right? which is the plaque buildup in your arteries, come from bad diet and too much fat and not enough antioxidants and not enough omega-3s, things like that. We talk about hypertension, where your blood pressure becomes too high. We don't think of that as being a heart thing. It is because it's involved in your blood pressure, but when your blood pressure is high, that means your heart's having to work a lot more than it needs to work or should have to work, which is stress on your heart, on the muscle. And things like arrhythmias, if your heart beats too slow or too fast or erratically, all of those things can go wrong, and much more. It's like a muscle. So you can have all of this sort of problems that muscles can have. Luckily, they don't cramp very often. Common medical interventions when you get those sorts of things. So, doctors like to put you on cholesterol management because they know cholesterol is a risk factor. They put you on blood pressure management because they know that blood pressure, hypertension and blood pressure is a stress, not only to your heart, but to other parts of your body as well. They'll put you on rhythm management drugs that will either slow down or speed up or control your heart rate. And they'll put you on sort of anticoagulation drugs to keep your blood thin. So if you do get an elevated heart rate, say atrial fibrillation, that it doesn't create the blood clots that end up being strokes and things like that. But if these things get out of control, and often there aren't warning signs, often you don't really hear too much about this in your body until it happens. Many hundreds of thousands of times a year, a person's first symptom of their heart going bad is their last, also, sadly. So heart attack and heart failure are an end product of the program. So what can you do? Quickly, you can make smart behavioral interventions, right? If you smoke, stop. Just stop. It's killing your heart and going to kill you too. If you're overweight and obese, really try to manage that weight, get that weight down. After stopping smoking, managing your weight is probably the second most important thing you can do in a physical sense, in a behavioral sense. Next is try to avoid stress. I always find that idea of avoiding stress. If you could see it coming, you could get out of the way, right? But sometimes it's just there whether you like it or not. And finally, don't be lazy. Get up and exercise or dance or walk or run or swim or bike or do something, but don't just sit there. And interesting enough, these healthy lifestyle things like this we talk about, everybody embraces it. We've done it for decades. We've been talking about it, but everybody embraces it. If you go to the CDC site, they will tell you that living a healthy lifestyle, you can keep your blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar levels normal and lower your risk of heart disease and heart attack. So, there's some basic things you can do, but there are a few other things I think that we need to consider as well. And that's the relationship of diet and heart disease. I sort of look at diet and the foods we consume, the things we like to eat, as a sort of an avoid and enjoy sort of approach. So things we should avoid is too much sodium. Sodium is directly connected to blood pressure because the sodium that's contained in salt gets into your blood, makes your blood thicker, which makes your heart work harder, which makes your blood pressure go up. Avoid fat and saturated and trans fats. Avoid sugar and products based on refined white sugar foods. Avoid fried foods. That's not only a source of trans fats, but just a source of other things that are bad for you. And avoid what I call as industrialized or processed foods. Those things that you can buy in a box that taste amazing and cost nothing. There's a reason for that. And then there's the enjoy side. Enjoy the fruits and vegetables, the green leafy ones, the colorful green leafies in particular. Eat fiber-rich foods. You can use whole grain breads and stuff like that, but eat nuts and whole grains and themselves and beans and things like that. Eat some fresh fish. Fish is always good. I try to eat it 3 or 4 times a week. And consume low-fat protein. Protein is critical, your heart's a muscle, so it's made of protein, so it's constantly regenerating. So it needs really high quality source of amino acids to keep that regeneration going. So, lean beef and chicken are good. And then, of course, our protein shakes are wonderful for that. So, that's sort of the basic idea. There are a lot of Neolife products that play a role in heart health, and I will share some with you. see if I can find it. Oh, excuse me. I have to go and close that for a second. And that's not the one. Oh, there's the one I wanted. Technology. All of these supplements you see here are what I call heart healthy Neo Life supplements. They are directly involved in supporting some element of heart or heart health. All natural fiber, because fiber-rich diets are fundamental to heart health, and the vast majority of us simply don't get enough fiber in our diet. Try as hard as you might. It's hard to get, the 25 or 30 or 35 grams of fiber you need each day. Garlic allium complex is great because garlic contains an element called allicin. It comes from the reaction between alliin and allinase, and it's in the garlic and allium products. It's where they get their allium vegetable. The important thing about allicin has been known for a long time to play important roles in helping your heart maintain blood pressure. In Germany, for example, it is a sort of a go-to first step for people at risk of heart disease. So garlic allium complex is great. Then it contains exactly the amount you need to do that job. Next is lipotropic adjunct, because lipotropic factors, the things that keep blood fats like cholesterol in your blood, are important and hard to get from dietary sources. Magnesium complex, because magnesium is directly involved in heart rate rhythm. If you have a magnesium deficiency, you will often have a rhythm deficiency or a rhythm problem with your heart. That is more common in men than women, but certainly something to consider for all of us. Coenzyme Q10, remember your heart is a muscle and it's regenerating all the time. And the coenzyme Q10 is involved in the production and management of mitochondria in that heart muscle. In addition to that, commonly people who have high cholesterol or are concerned about their heart will be on a statin drug to lower their cholesterol level, which it will do. But sort of the dark side of that is it also inhibits the body's natural production of CoQ10. So you can end up sort of managing your cholesterol through drug intervention, but really negatively impacting your CoQ10. So anybody that's in that situation is additionally in need of CoQ10 compared to all the rest of us. And the older you get, the more you need it. You also see vitamin E there. Vitamin E is a great lipid-soluble antioxidant. Ours contains all 8 members. And I'm not going to be able to tell that whole story, but it's compelling. But those different 4 tocotrienols and 4 tocopherols sort of work together in helping manage oxidative stress in the heart. And finally, there's Tray over there. And Tray is rich in polyphenols and flavonoids, things that cross the blood-brain barrier. There's this there's this knowledge in science that what's good for the brain is good for the heart, and what's good for the heart is good for the brain. And the reason is those water-soluble polyphenols have anti-inflammatory and antioxidant capacities that are important in protecting the heart from those sorts of stresses. But there's 3 here that I would like to sort of focus on, okay? And that is carotenoid complex and salmon oil plus and our weight management program. And the reason I want to focus on those, hang on a second here. Oh, I want to change this. Don't you just love live calls? Okay.
I do. I do love live calls. I think they're super fun.
Yeah. It's real time, right? So we're it's in real time. So the reason I want to focus on these 3 particularly is that they're sort of my go-to answers for people who say, I have, concerns about my heart. I have problems with my family, has a history of heart disease, or my doctor tells me I'm at risk, or I simply don't feel right. I know I don't do enough things to protect it. I know I don't eat the things I need to eat. And therefore, what you got for me? And I like that because that's somebody thinking positively about preventing it. It becomes more challenging when they show up and say, well, I had a heart attack yesterday. What can you do? We can do something, but it's always better to prevent than it is to correct. Right? So when we look at this, the reason I go to carotenoid complex, these 3 products actually, is because they all have human clinical evidence that proves that they work. Not that those other products I talked about don't have evidence they work, they do, but these particular ones have multiple human clinical trials that say they do things that directly help your heart health. Carotenoid complex, for example, everybody that's been around the business knows this is the finest whole food carotenoid supplement in the world, the first to ever enter the market, and still one of the strongest sort of health protection, disease prevention supplements that you can come across. But focusing specifically on how it's good for the heart. First, those human clinical trials done by the SAB and researchers at the US Department of Agriculture confirmed a couple of things. They confirmed that the carotenoids are bioavailable, that they get into your bloodstream. Really important first step in any sort of clinical trial is, does it get into the body? But most importantly, once it was in the body, they proved bioutilization, that the body actually used this stuff. It did it in two ways that protect your heart. One is it they proved that it protected cell membranes. It reduced the oxidative stress on cell membranes. Now, we might think of a cell as being isolated somewhere in your body, but the cells of your heart is a hardworking muscle. So those cells are doing a lot of work all the time, which means they're taking in a lot of nutrients, making a lot of energy, getting a lot of waste. So their membranes are at risk. And carotenoid complex was proven in that human clinical trial to reduce oxidative stress on those membranes to help keep them strong and protected. Additionally, the researchers at USDA and we, the SAB, in a follow-up study, showed that carotenoid complex has the ability to protect LDL cholesterol from oxidation. That's important because oxidative modification of LDL cholesterol in particular is the process that leads to the formation of plaque in the arteries. So if you have high cholesterol and a lot of oxidation, a lot of oxidative stress, a lack of antioxidants, but a lot of oxidative stress, you are at great risk of building your plaque up quickly and having a what we call atherosclerosis, or an inability to get for the heart to get all the blood that it needs. So that's really important. And again, as human clinical evidence, it's not just something we read in a local magazine or in a science journal or something like that. This is human clinical evidence from trials conducted by us and from members of the US Department of Agriculture as well. Now, and then I want to focus a little bit on Salmon Oil Plus. Again, there's a strong scientific connection to Salmon Oil Plus and heart health. One of the reasons why the American Heart Association and other authorities recommend that we consume fish every week, 2 to 3 servings. 2 is the minimum. They'd like to see us consume more, especially if you're eating a high-fat diet of processed and fast food type of stuff. The reason they do that is because of the omega-3 fatty acids that are there, and they know that omega-3 fatty acids are directly involved in heart health in a number of different ways. Right? They allow your blood to flow more easily. They reduce blood platelet aggregation, which is a sort of a reduction of risk of a stroke or a clot forming, things like that. So they see it as a really important nutrient. I'd like to focus on our Salmon Oil Plus again because of the human clinical trial proof that we have that our product actually works. We don't have to rely on somebody's generic evidence or something that you might read on, in a magazine or something like that. We have really solid human clinical evidence. This evidence was published in peer-reviewed journals, as was the work at Carotenoid Complex. But here's the human clinical proof that stands out for heart health. In these clinical trials, omega-3 salmon oil plus was shown to improve your omega-3 index. That's the balance between inflammatory forces and anti-inflammatory forces in your body. The omega-3 index is an indicator of your ability to manage inflammation. Now remember, the heart is beating all the time, burning a lot of energy all the time. When you go to sleep, luckily it does not. And all the time it's doing that, just even at rest, it is using a lot of energy, and energy production always increases oxidative stress and inflammatory stress in that tissue. So particularly important to have a good balance of omega-3 fats relative to, which are the anti-inflammatory fats relative to the inflammatory fats. Next, it lowers inflammatory stress in your body, meaning that in general, in these clinical trials, we showed that throughout the body, the presence of salmon oil plus reduced the inflammatory stress or the inflammatory index, put you in a less inflamed biochemical state than you would have been before you took it. That's good for your whole body, but it's particularly good for the heart again, because it's working so hard all the time. We also showed in these human clinical trials that salmon oil plus had the ability to lower blood triglycerides. Like cholesterol, triglycerides are one of the forms of blood fats that circulate around in your body. Elevated triglycerides, we know, is an indicator of risk of heart disease. When we brought people into the study, we showed a couple of things. One, people who had elevated triglycerides in just 4 to 8 weeks brought those triglyceride levels down to healthy norms without the use of any sort of a drug. What we found interesting about that test is for those people who came into the study that didn't have high triglycerides, nothing happened. That was important because it showed that we were feeding a natural biological ability to deal with triglyceride management, not inducing a drug response. But this sort of data is really what shows why these products are so important for heart health, that they do all of these things and more. Now, I want to give you one more quick little chat here about weight. You heard me say earlier that weight management is an important factor. After smoking, managing your weight is an important factor in terms of heart health. And I have to emphasize that again. We know that the heart disease is one of the chronic diseases. We know that in many parts of the world, even here in many parts of North America, it is the primary mechanism of mortality in people. And like I said, sometimes your first symptom of heart disease is your last symptom of heart disease. So it's really important that we understand the relationship. We know that when we are overweight or obese, it puts extra stress on our heart because we've got to pump blood to all of that extra mass. Okay. We know that when you carry a lot of fat, that fat releases inflammatory factors into your blood that can stress not only your heart, but all of the tissue of your body, but particularly the heart. It increases inflammation and oxidative stress on your heart when you are overweight. Additionally, it puts you at risk. It becomes a driver of chronic disease. We know that if you're overweight and obese, you are at greater risk of diabetes. And if you are at greater risk of diabetes, you are at greater risk of heart disease. The way it goes, you become overweight, you develop type 2 diabetes, and that puts you on a pathway towards heart disease. So really important. The thing I like about our Neolife weight management program is the human clinical proof. In human clinical trials, this product was shown to do a great number of things, not only help you lose weight, which is important, and help you reduce body mass and switch out fat first with protein or with muscle, or change that balance between fat and muscle, your ratios in that regard, BMI. They also proved that it can have a tremendously beneficial effect on cardiovascular health. In those studies, in those human clinical studies, they showed that it can reduce cholesterol, which is good, overall cholesterol, that it reduced the LDL to total cholesterol ratio, and most importantly, it improved the HDL, the good cholesterol to LDL ratio, to HDL ratio, or the HDL to LDL ratio, excuse me, and the HDL to total cholesterol ratio. It took people who were at risk, who had elevated cholesterol and a lot of LDL, the bad cholesterol, and very little HDL, the good cholesterol, and actually fixed that for them. In addition to the fact that it helped them with weight management and, like I say, improving their body size, their fat to lean tissue ratios, it actually had a strong effect on protecting their hearts by helping with that triglyceride balance. And those three things are why this is a great product, and why this, our weight management system is always one of my go-to solutions for people, along with salmon oil plus and carotenoid complex. because all of that clinical proof adds up to being cardio beneficial. All of it focuses on improving your health. A lot of things you can do to make your heart better. And certainly behaviorally, stop smoking, get up and exercise, lose some weight and things like that. But helping to manage the realities of your heart's environment, the inflammatory stress, the oxidative stress, and the things that go on, and the things that are in your bloodstream that can affect your heart health, your cholesterol and triglycerides and things like that. All of those are critically important and why they're my go-to supplements for heart health. So I hope this has been informative. That was my plan.
Very informative. I love your slide. It's a beautiful slide and a great illustration of our heart healthy products. John, we have about 1 minute left, and I'm wondering if I can ask you a very quick impromptu question.
Sure.
Our distributors, we sent out a survey a couple months ago, and our distributors, a few of them asked if we could, on our calls, just briefly talk about why Neolife? Why Neolife products?
Okay.
Like I said, we only have about a minute left, but do you have a couple thoughts on that?
I have 1,000 thoughts, maybe. Yeah, I actually have a program I've done recently. That talking about the Neolife difference is difficult and easy. One reason is every single product has a difference to it. It's not just how we make the products. It's the philosophy we've had since day one. We have been 1958, a long time ago. We have been focused on this idea of delivering whole food nutrition that is being lost in either through poor dietary choices or just through the industrialization of the food supply. And that, even though it goes clear back to 1958, is still the center of attention in science today, because we know that those alterations, the absences of critical things and the presence of other things is the difference. The way we get there is by looking at nature and paying attention to nature and then using science to fulfill it. That dedication to those things is fundamental to the Neolife difference. We just do things differently. The way we select raw materials is different. The work we've done over the decades. The SAB took over control of the product line in 1976 when Dr. Peirce came on board. And since then, the company has just let us lead this. If you think about it, for example, GMOs are a big issue today. They've been a big issue commonly for, maybe the last 20 years, but we started thinking about and taking action about GMOs 40 years ago. Well before it became something that everybody was worried about. We were already worried about. And that's true of a lot of things that we do. We just pay attention to nature and then use science to execute it. That coupled with this clinical evidence that I told you about, the philosophy of following nature's blueprint and combining science, and then taking the time and spending the money, the huge amounts of money, to go do clinical trials to prove that your product actually works in a human body. You might think that that's common practice, but I guarantee you that it is not common practice in the industry. Very few companies have the sort of clinical evidence that we have that supports their products do anything. Very few companies have clinical evidence that's done either in partnership with or individually by third-party organizations like those researchers from the USDA. Very few companies get their sort of clinical evidence that's generated from that activity published in peer-reviewed journals, not just once, not 10 times, but over and over. When you put all that together, nature and science and all of that clinical evidence and our philosophical approach, the way we conduct ourselves, the things that are important to us, everybody that's in Neolife is part of our family. And I know the SAB feels that we have to be absolutely certain of anything we recommend to our family. So, that whole philosophy and approach, like I say, I could go on forever and ever talking about it.
Listening to you talk about it, I feel like we could almost do a call completely dedicated on the Neolife difference.
No, we could easily. We could do a series of calls on it. But yeah, every Neolife product has a Neolife difference. And that neo-life difference is always important.
Great. Well, thank you for joining me today, John. I know our Neo-Life family loves hearing from you. They really communicated that in our survey.
Good.
And your passion and your knowledge definitely comes through on these calls. So I really appreciate your time today. And I, of course, appreciate everyone who joined us today. And these calls are going to be posted on our social media, our Facebook, our YouTube channel. So, people can go back and reference it later. I know I would definitely need to take notes and stop and rewind and, listen to all the information, because it's all really, really great scientific information.
Good.
So,
it's easy when it's all true.
True. That's very true. Okay, well, John, thank you so much. Thank you, Neo-Life family, and we will see you again next month.
All right.
Okay,
And
bye. Bye,
see you
everyone.
down the road. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank
Be
you.
well.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.